Hi everybody, Mike Kline here. I'm wearing my Chipp hat today, but I do want to talk to you about vibe coding again. I want to talk about Lovable. As a Lovable fanatic, that's where most of my building is happening during vibe coding. But also, I'm a huge Chipp fan, so one of my favorite things to do with all of my Lovable builds is to add a Chipp assistant into the build. If you're familiar with Lovable, you know that they just released Lovable Cloud, which includes Lovable AI, something that's built into the system that you can activate that uses Gemini as its backbone. The reason I like to use Chipp actually is because it gives me a choice of a different variety of LLMs that I can use, and also because it's trainable. So what I'm going to show you today is this is an app that I'm working on. My wife is a teacher and she is training to be ESL certified. And for one of her projects, she had to take their school handbook and write a different section that was targeted to ESL students. And so what I did was fire up Lovable, and I created a translated app that we could publish and that families would actually be able to use. It would have specific ESL sections in it and be able to be searchable and also have an assistant embedded that the users will be able to converse with to get information out of it. So that's what I have on the screen here right now. It is mobile optimized. It's a progressive web app, so you can download it to your phone. It's a pretty cool app so far, and it's already published. So what I've done here, over here on my Chipp tab, I have the Chipp agent that I'm building. Because I like weird names, I picked Gladiator. The school mascot is a gladiator, so I picked Gladiator because I'm a giant dork. Anyway, so this is my Chipp interface. You can see the setup here. I also want to point out I still use Claude for a lot of my stuff. And over here in Claude, I have my various projects set up, including Chipp Prompt Engineer. And what this does for me is it helps me build prompts using the Ripen framework, which makes Chipp agents and Chipp assistants run exceedingly well. So I'm always using the Ripen framework for my Chipp agents. You can see it here. I went through, we had a brief conversation. I explained what I'm doing with the Chipp agent that I wanted to build. Claude asked me a few more questions that I answered, and then it spit out the prompt. This is the prompt over here as an artifact. I was able to copy and paste it over here into Chipp, into my agent, and you can see the complete prompt here. The key thing about Chipp, again, is that as knowledge sources. So I went ahead and I added as knowledge sources. I had the parental handbook for ESL students. This is the English version. I also uploaded a PDF of the Spanish version. And then here, this is the actual handbook because I wanted the app to have all the content of the actual handbook. And then lastly, I published the app and I had Chipp scan it so it could get all the information about it also into its knowledge sources. So it's a well-trained agent and understands everything about the content of the handbook, and that's going to be key for its interaction. Okay, so we have the agent built, the assistant, and we'll be able to share it using this content here. One of the nice things that Lovable seems to have done is it seems to be familiar with Chipp now. Maybe it's because I use it a lot. I don't want to take credit for that, but who knows, maybe it is. And so now that it's familiar with Chipp, whenever I go to embed an agent into it, it asks me for the API key, which I'll share. And it also asks me for this model right here, where it says model Gladiator 10030541. It'll ask me for that model. When it puts those two things into edge functions and secrets, it will enable the agent to appear in the app. So back over here in the app, one of the things that we have to do, because all the content right now is stored in the app memory, we need to change that because I want to add the Chipp agent as a database item to Supabase. So what we're going to do is we're going to enable Lovable Cloud, which is another part of Lovable that was just released. This is a nice streamlined built-in backend based on Supabase that's in Lovable, and it is really easy to activate. I like to call it Supabase-like because it has all the function, but if you're not a database person, if you're not a programmer or a coder, it's a lot easier to understand what's going on behind the scenes than it is to interact with full-on Supabase. So if you need a streamlined version of database, Lovable Cloud is great for that. So we'll enable Cloud and get that rolling. Okay, so you can see here that it has enabled Cloud. It's all fired up. Database storage, user authentication, edge functions. We will click on this little bugger here so that we can bookmark this if we ever need to roll back. And this screen over here just shows you everything that is involved that you have available to you in your database. Right now, we haven't added anything. We've just started the Cloud function, but we haven't added anything yet. We'll be doing that once we tell it to add the Chipp agent to our app. Okay, so what I've done here is I've informed Lovable of what we're going to do. I said I built an AI assistant for the app using Chipp AI. I want to integrate it seamlessly into the app as a sliding drawer that opens when users call the assistant and closes when they tap an X. It should be styled similarly to the app and detect the language of the user based on either the language they're browsing in or the language they type their question in. The assistant is already trained on all of the content in the app and is aware of the 6 languages it supports. Make a plan to integrate the Chipp assistant. So we will get that moving. I'm using that in chat mode because that's where you plan when you're in Lovable. Now, when you ask Lovable to create a plan for you, it really creates a plan, which is a good thing. So the first thing it wants to know is how we're going to embed the Chipp assistant. And so we're going to use an API. So I'm going to tell that we're going to use an API that has another series of questions and comments and plans about how it's going to create the assistant, state management, adding translations, integration points, different options, so on and so forth. So we are going to implement this plan, and I'm going to give it the information it needs to install the Chipp assistant. You can see here that I've answered Lovable's questions, and I've said we'll be using an API from Chipp and the model ID to install the assistant, and we're going to use the floating action button in the bottom right corner for the integration. So you can see it's asking me for the Chipp API key and the Chipp model ID, which are both available over here in Chipp. So we will copy our API key, put that in here, and then the model ID is right here, Gladyniter-100300541. So I will type that in. So I've entered the content here. We will click Submit, and Lovable will do its magic. All right, so I want to walk you through what happened here. Lovable came back with a few questions about how to access the Chipp API and use that information. So I gave it some feedback, but then I thought, it'll be better for you to grab the documents. What it ended up doing was going out to the Chipp website, pulling their API documents, and coming back with a even more complete plan to integrate the assistant into the app. And so at the end of the day, that's ultimately what it did here. You can see it took about 5 minutes for this to get done. We'll save that into our bookmarks. And then you can see over here on the right that chat has been integrated. And you can see it's taking up the full screen. It's a drawer from the bottom. That's probably okay because once we are in mobile, it'll look all right. And so that's it. It's the API and the model number. Apparently, it also needs to know the exact API endpoint, but it's super easy, goes fairly quickly, and you have a fully functioning AI assistant in your Lovable app.